Do you know what the biggest problem is facing our society today? It isn't drugs. It isn't even crime. Poverty? Homelessness? No. Those are all a result of the problem. They aren't the problem. The problem could be selfishness, divisiveness, dehumanization, and all of that starts at home. Home, the place where we develop our values, our virtues, our moral code. It's the foundation that helps us to form our standards, helps to cultivate how we're going to handle all of our future interpersonal relationships, and helps to determine who we will someday be. Home. The biggest problem facing our society today is the breakdown of that foundation. That is the problem. Let me share a story with you. About 4 years ago, I got the amazing news that I was going to be a grandmother. At the time, my son was living in Washington State. I was here in New Hampshire. Packed my bags, picked up my life, and I moved to Washington State. Now, seeing your child experience the miracle of life is quite remarkable. Here my son melted before my very eyes as he held his newborn baby girl. It was a Friday night. My granddaughter had been with her mother all day, and my son was working. After his 12-hour shift, he picked me up, and we headed to their home. He was beaming with excitement to have the weekend off and to spend it with his daughter. Though, when we pulled in the driveway, we both knew that something was very wrong. And we ended up spending my son's first Father's Day weekend at a police station, trying to locate his baby girl. My granddaughter was 7 days old when she was taken. My story sounds like that out of a Lifetime movie, right? But if you look to your left and you look to your right, it's quite likely that one of your neighbors, if not both of them, can relate to my story in some way. It's an increasing global issue, that of separation, divorce, and child custody. It's a void that has caused, or at least contributed to, every single societal issue that exists today. Are you aware that the most reliable indicator of violent crime in a community is the proportion of single-parent families? 85% of all children with behavior disorders come from single-parent homes. They also make up 90% of all homeless and runaway children, 75% of all adolescent patients in chemical abuse centers, and 63% of all youth suicides. When we grow up without a parent, we're often missing out on experiences, influences, learning opportunities, and memories. With other family members as well, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, possibly siblings. This dynamic essentially changes who we are and ultimately who we become. Now you might be sitting there thinking, well, I turned out fine. Or my kids have turned out fine, and I hope they have. It's possible. Of course it's possible. We aren't doomed because of negative childhood experiences. But just because they don't fit into one of the statistics doesn't mean they don't struggle with feelings of abandonment or mistrust, wondering who they are or if they're good enough. And it certainly doesn't mean they aren't predisposed to later separating or divorcing themselves. Most of us, we internalize our feelings. We build up this protective wall. We tell ourselves, I don't need anyone. We even joke about being damaged. We fill perceived voids in our life with food, with alcohol, perhaps with work. And then we go and get new friends to replace the old, to replace our families. But when we do this, we can say, I turned out fine. We may even be what society calls a success. But do we forget the others? Do we ignore the statistics? Because there's a drug epidemic in this country. Increased crime, poverty, homelessness, violence. human trafficking, increased physical and mental health issues, mass shootings. But you know what? Let's build some more homeless shelters because that's going to fix the issue. Let's build more prisons. Build more safe places for the victims of domestic violence. No, you know what? Let's teach our kids how to protect themselves against bad guys because that's going to fix everything. We put these Band-Aids on our social issues because we can't come together long enough to talk about the actual problem. Never mind long-term effective solutions. We're so divided, so divided. Our families, our communities, and each and every single one of us are to blame for it because we throw away relationships and we don't look back. It's too hard. It's too hard to deal with that conflict or to confront differences that we have. And if family relationships don't matter, your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your husband or wife of 20 years doesn't matter, isn't worth the effort, then no relationship is worth the effort. Yet we'll still go home tonight, watch the news, and wonder, how did we get to be so divided? My granddaughter was taken about 4 years ago now, and fortunately, she again lives with her mom and her dad. This experience has helped to reunite and strengthen her extended family. And now I try every day to encourage people to repair their broken relationships for themselves, for their families, and for society. I want to leave you all with a request today. Please, put the effort into your relationships. If you want to help society, if you want to make a difference, put the effort into your relationships. It may be hard. I get it. It may be really hard. It also may be very well worth it. Thank you.